Hey, what's happening, Captain? Oh my god. I'm just gonna come out with it. Like, I know, like, since we broke 100 subs, we haven't been doing too much of the content lately. I'm sorry, life just kind of got in the way a little bit. I didn't have the chance or the opportunity to produce more of the content, like matches and deck profiles that, well, I was able to get some matches and deck profile, well, not deck profiles, just the matches. But I'm sorry, like, I'm weird. Like, I have like a little pet peeve that, like, if like I wouldn't watch the video, then I don't want to put it out. You know what I mean? Because I do this for you guys, to show, like, you guys, but I do it for me as well. Like, I love to showcase my ideas, and like that's the whole point of the match videos, right? Just showing them in action, the idea working, and then it ties into the deck profile. But I want to say thank you for the 100 subs. It's crazy that we're here. Like, it literally feels like yesterday that we were like at 17, and now we're at like what? At the when this video goes up, like 108, 107, something like that. But I wanted to profile the deck that I took to locals this past Tuesday at House Rules Gaming. Shout out to Chris. It's Token RANBU, and I know what you're thinking. Token RANBU, I heard of it. I don't know what any of the cards do, and I cannot pronounce their names. Yeah, me neither. Until I just had like a really long week of work, and it was like after paying all my bills, next week pulled around, and I was like, you know what? I don't got no bills to pay. I really just want to treat myself. And Token RANBU cards were very inexpensive, and the lyrical cards were also very inexpensive. So I was like, you know what? Let me buy all the Token RANBU cards, all the lyrical cards, and this gives me a chance to showcase these decks. This gives me more content, more like different deck showcases for match videos. Like, I'm gonna eventually showcase all the Token RANBU decks, like even the bad ones. There are like a few bad ones right now, at least just because of how the meta has morphed and evolved. But I think KASHUU is a pretty good one. His name is can't pronounce it. I can only pronounce the first part, so we're calling him KASHUU. And sorry for the rambling, but let's get into the deck profile. First off, the starter. This is just the Token RANBU rare. A friend of mine pulled it, and then I basically traded him a Clarissa for it, because I was like, man, I was flexing this during the tournament. I gotta flex it for the profile as well. And then basically the grade 1 and 2 of the ride line is when it's ridden upon by the next grade. So when the 2 rides the 1 says you get to look at the top card of your deck. You either get to leave it on top or you get to soul charge it. So if it's a trigger, you obviously leave it on top, and if it's not a trigger, depending if you want it or not, like if it's like a PG or like a key piece or a persona ride, you just soul charge it. And then the 2, when it's ridden upon by the 3, what it does is it searches for this guy, Yamato. This is basically I read the flavor text, so I know what some of these guys are, like what they do. Like, Token RANBU's a game, like but I read some of the flavor text, so I do know what the correlation of the cards are between each other. Not all of them, but some of them. So the reason why the grade 2, when you ride the grade 3, searches for Yamato is because Yamato is the sword. Yamato is his sword. So that's why you search Yamato. What he does is Counterblast 1, he gets +5. That's not once per turn. But if you have the grade 3 as your Vanguard, KASHUU, it gets +10 instead of +5. And basically what the grade 3 does is continuous. If you have no face-up Counterblast, he gets +10 on your turn. And then his other ability is Act once per turn, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. Ooh, this is bothering me. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. You get to look at the top card of your deck. You either leave it on top or put it to the bottom, then you draw a card. So you put it, generally what you want to do is you want to manipulate the top card of your deck beforehand, that you know what it is. Or like you want to make it not a trigger, because it sucks when like you just need more pieces and you got to tuck that trigger to the bottom. Or sometimes it's not too bad if you do draw the trigger, because there are some times that I actually needed the shield and I did choose to draw the trigger instead of tucking it to the bottom. But yeah, that is the ride line. I don't like in my profiles to explain what the cards do, But because this is Token Ranbu, because most people don't know what these cards do in general, like you're gonna see in the one match video that I'm gonna upload from my locals play with the deck, is generally people don't know what these cards do, so you're gonna have to explain them so that people get a feeling and gist of what the deck is and what it does. You know, it's not like the normal Five Nations where people already know what the cards do. You don't have to explain them. You don't have to explain. You don't have to explain the effects. You just have to explain the lines of play. But because that, generally speaking, no one knows what Token Ranbu cards do, let alone how to pronounce their names, because Lord knows, sure I don't. But it's just kind of like you have to do it. Even though normally I don't like doing it, because you guys normally, you know, I assume for the most part, if you're looking up the deck, that you know what the cards do, or you have a general understanding of what the cards do. But going on to the rest of the profile, maxing out on Persona Ride. There's really nothing to say here. You really do need that 10k. You do need the draw. The deck does draw, but it doesn't draw that much because you are like very much committing like a lot of cards to the field to have like a certain like field setup that you want. So copies of the Persona Ride, and then onto the twos. I'm running 3 copies of Yamato. At first, I was running 2 copies of Yamato, but there was just so many times where like I would top check for my grade 1's ability, and it would be Yamato, and I'd have to soul charge the Yamato, or like, you know, leave it on top if I need the extra unit. But there was so many times where like I would draw it, damage it, or soul charge both of them. I would damage one and soul charge the other one, or I would draw one and then damage one. So I'm just playing. I have the flex spot in the deck to play an extra copy of Yamato. It's really important you get that search off, man. Sometimes this is a really key play extender on your first grade 3 ride, because of certain, like, you generally, well, not always, but generally you want to use all the counterblasts you have on that turn, or like damn near all the counterblasts you have on that turn, so your Vanguard's gonna be 23 base by itself, and then you know, you get the full effects is what I'm saying. So that's why I'm maxing out on 3 copies of Yamato. And then I'm also playing another. This is from the trial deck, by the way. This ride line is from the trial deck. This is the trial deck ride line, and this card's also from the trial deck. I have another build of Token Ranbu that I really do like. He has completely gold armor, but arguably the best ride line in Token Ranbu, but his effect really isn't all that strong. So I decided to go with KASHUU instead of him, because KASHUU's just like a little bit more stronger because he can manipulate the top card of your deck to get triggers, which you do need to check in this deck for your main strategy. And then I run 4 copies of Hesh. No, I can't pronounce his entire name. I'm sorry. I'm going to call him Hesh because that's the first four words of his name. 4 copies of Hesh. This card is also from the trial deck. You only get 3 copies of this card in the trial deck, and this is arguably the best card in the trial deck. So you want to max this out at 4 because it's such a good combo with your grade 3 your grade 3 KASHUU, because this card on place lets you look at the top 2 cards of your deck and then you rearrange them in any order. So generally, whenever I used it yesterday, it was either 2 normal units or a trigger and a normal unit. I'll put the normal unit first and then draw the normal unit, and then the trigger be sitting on top. Or if it is 2 normal units, like I said, this combo's best with KASHUU because you look at the top card, put that other normal unit to the bottom, draw the other normal unit, and it like increases your chances for triggers. So you really do want to max this guy out at 4 copies. He is arguably the best card in your deck. But yeah. And this is generally Yamato and Hesh are your like early game plays if you have any at all, because this deck can get weird. It can get like setup orientated. Sorry, orientated, where you really do need to hold your pieces until turn 3, or you do need to hold back some cards until like at least your opponent is at grade 3 for certain effects in this deck. And then I'm playing 4 copies of Mikazuki. The reason that we're playing Mikazuki in the deck is it is another card that kind of meshes well with the strategy of this deck. He has one ability that has 3 different conditions. It's a once per turn. The first condition is if you get 3 or more damage, he gets +5 to the end of the turn. The second condition is if you have 4 or more damage, you get to look at the top card of your deck, put it on top or bottom. And then the last one is if you're at 5 damage, you get to Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, restand him. So, like, because of his, abilities, it does mesh really well with this deck. I'm maxing this card out at 4 copies because I do want to see him, even though it kind of is useless in the early game. I want to see him. I want to have the chance of setting up two of this guy for when I am put into 5 damage. And sometimes you want to go to 5 damage on purpose because there's other cards in the deck that you give another additional benefits that if you are at 5 damage. But I wanna have the chance to be able to do 2 of these. That lets me sculpt my drive check, get 2 extra attacks, and then swing with my Vanguard, and then I could stack the triggers that are possibly on top of the deck on the standing Mikazukis. So that's the reason why we're maxing it out on 4. And then another card that we are okay. So in the tournament yesterday, I was playing a different card from this card. This is the only change I have to the list. I was playing... Damn, I gotta read this guy because I don't know his name. Shodu. I was playing 4 copies of Shoduari. What Shoduari does is... Oh, damn. I don't have enough space. Let me see if I can just move this down a smidge. Yeah. That's a little bit too much. Alright. I was running 4 copies of Shoduari. What Shoduari does is on call, Counterblast 1, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, +5 to your front row. And I did realize that this deck was lacking in making like really powerful numbers. So I was like, oh, +5 to the front row, let me, that's like something the deck needs. And it's also multi-purpose because it has a second effect that I could choose to call it and use it in the early game. It has an on-hit effect is when his attack hits a Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, pop a front row rear guard. So it was a multi-purpose. I saw it as a multi-purpose card that I could use it in the early game and I could use it in the mid to late game. That was the reason why I was running it. But honestly, his effect didn't come up too much where it mattered a lot. Neither did his on-hit effect. Really, no, his on-hit effect never really came up either. Because either my opponent's front row was like protected, or they just didn't have a front row, or for me to pop, or they just guarded it. So that's the reason why I chose to take it out the deck. It was like the least impactful card from the little the tournament from what was it? Technically, no, the tournament from this week. So I took it out the deck for a card that would make more sense in this build. I'm playing 4 copies of Onimaru. Now Onimaru has the same stipulation as Shukadari, is that your opponent needs to be at grade 3 or greater. His ability is on attack, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 if your opponent's at grade 3 or greater, and he gets +5 in a crit until the end of that battle. And then at the end of that battle, tuck him on the bottom of the deck. Now, the reason that I am playing this card is because we have a grade 1 that gains massive power. Well, it gains more power than normal if you do check a trigger and give it to that grade 1. So basically, you can make a power column with this and that grade 1, and it has a crit. And then the sucky thing is that you can't use it again next turn because it tucks and it tucks itself on the bottom of the deck. But that's actually a good thing for you because we're running so many grade 2s that we want to call because of their on-call abilities, because of their attack abilities, like Mikazuki, like Hesh. Like, sometimes you want to call Yamato and just Counterblast 2, give him plus 20k. So, this is actually a benefit to, even though it is a minus, it's a benefit to your strategy because you don't have to worry about, oh, if my opponent doesn't pop these, I'm gonna have to call over them. If my opponent doesn't attack my rears, or if I can't intercept with my rears for a good value, I'm gonna have to call over them. Or, call them to the back row, which, like, they're not a booster. So this kind of, like, meshes well with the deck in that sense, or at least in my opinion. So that's why I wanted to play like 4 copies of Onimaru. It just made sense to me in that vein. But that's the only change of the deck. Like the rest of the deck is still the list that I played yesterday. I felt everything else worked out perfect for me. Well, not like perfect, but everything else worked out in terms of like consistency of what the deck needed, except Shukakiri, which I probably like changed his name for like the 3rd time. But man, I can't say these names. I gotta give all these boys like nicknames or something because their names are way too hard to pronounce. Then I'm playing for the grade 1s. We're playing 4 copies of Kenshin. The reason that we're playing 4 copies of Kenshin is that this is another card that it combos with Hesh, it combos with Mikazuki, to whereas look, if you look at the top card of your deck and it's like not a trigger, you could just grab it before you drive check. His ability is after he boosts at the end of battle, Camboss 1, put him to soul, draw a card, and then give a unit plus 2k to the end of the turn. The 2k doesn't come up a lot. There was a moment in playing that it did come up, but the 2k really doesn't come up a lot. But yeah, that's another reason why you are playing the crap. I'm sorry, guys. These names are just the Kenshins. You know, it lets you cycle through your deck, and it just helps you thin your deck of, not like thin your deck, but like helps you stack your deck to whereas you're gonna check a trigger. And then we're playing 4 copies of Yoshi. This is like the best card in your deck. This is kind of like the card where it basically says that like, hey, like you basically get to pretend like you're Hexa Orb because of his ability. His ability is that when you give him trigger power, you double that power. So if it's 10k, he gets 20k instead. And if it's 100 million, he gets 200 million instead. So that's the reason why we're maxing this card out at 4. There was times yesterday where this card did clog my hand, and you really don't want to have a full back row of him, because that really is only beneficial to you is if you drive check 2 triggers, which is really not that likely because you can't really control that much. You can manipulate and control if you're drive checking at least 1 trigger, but 2 you can't control. So my general ideal board is I'm having 1 behind my Vanguard and then 1 behind one of my rear guards. That's the general ideal board, and then I'd have something like a Kenshin behind the other rear guard. That's the ideal board I generally go for, because if you give a trigger to him, this is a 27k boost plus the 15 from Onimaru. That's 42 with a crit. And let's say if you use the Kenshin, you give it plus 2k. Now that's a magic number of 44 with a crit. So that's why we're maxing out at 4 copies of these cards. These are just, you know, key essential cards that do combo with what you're trying to do, and that's manipulate the top cards of your deck. Then I'm playing 4 PGs. Really nothing much to talk about. They're just the same PGs that every other clan has. If you have one or less, then you don't have to discard for its cost. Really good. Really came in clutch yesterday. I'm not even gonna lie. But that's it for the grade 1s. And now going on to the zeros, or basically the triggers. I do have something very interesting about the triggers, but not the triggers, but the over trigger. So running 8 crit. Ooh, gotta make it a little bit more sexy than that. Come on. I'm running 8 crit, 4 heal. That's a little bit cut off. Move it down. 8 crit, 4 heal, and I'm also playing. Nah, you can't see that it's a heal. I'm gonna move. Yeah, there we go. 8 crit, 4 heal. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit anal about that type of stuff. 3 draw triggers, and the reason that I'm running draw triggers, even though that they're only 5k over front triggers, which are just arguably better because of the shield value, even though they're not 20k fronts, it's just arguably the better choice, is that if I have a Yoshi on board, a front's not gonna do anything to me. And like I said, you're really good at manipulating the top card of your deck to whereas you're very likely to see one trigger, but not two. And if that one trigger, the only trigger I have access to is a front trigger, it doesn't do anything for Yoshi. So he's one of the main, key pieces of the deck that you want on the board, and you always want to give it your trigger power. So that's why I'm playing the draw triggers. They do help you draw into your pieces, but the only sucky thing is that they are just 5k shield. And then the last trigger of the deck is obviously the over trigger. Now this is a very interesting over trigger. This over trigger is not shield. It's an order card. Yep, it is an order trigger. Basically, what it does is, when you check it, its additional effect is, it gives +2 crit to all your units until the end of turn. And then, when you play it, its effect is, you choose, I believe it has to be Vanguard. Let me double check. Yeah, you choose one of your Vanguards, it gets +1 crit till the end of turn. And then, if you're at 5 damage, all your units get plus 10k till the end of turn. See, this is the other card I was talking about, that if you're at 5, you want to like maybe intentionally go to 5, and it gives you that additional bonus of, hey, you get all this power because you played me. But that's really the only scenario that you do want to play this card, and it sucks sometimes you want to try and hold on to it for that moment, and because it's not shield in your hand. But it is also really good if you're checking it, because it's basically a baby Brant Gate over trigger in a sense, because it gives the 2 crit to your front row. It's not as good as the Brant Gate over trigger by no means, but it's the Brant over trigger light. And before, all right, I know we're going in on 20 minutes, guys. Sorry. Before the end of the video, I did want to showcase the board you generally want to have. So we're gonna put the Vanguard here, we put Onimaru here. This is the board you want to have if your opponent is on grade 3. There it is. You want to set up a Yoshi and Onimaru column if your opponent does happen to be on grade 3, and then literally the other column can be anything. Let's say, if we're just showing like what you want to do, let's say the other column is this. So this is sort of like the basic field that you want to make. You want to have 2 Yoshis in the back row. You want to make this because it gives you that Hex Orb feel of, are you sure that's a 2 to pass? Because I can just give power to my boosting unit off of 1 trigger. 1 trigger is 20k. So are you sure that's a 2 to pass? It gives you that Hex Orb feel of they have to use a PG. And when they do PG, you have the other Yoshis like Neni Neni Boo Boo. I still get my Yoshi power up. And then this can potentially be at maximum a 44k column. If you Persona Road, a 54k column with a crit. And then, like I said, he's going to tuck to the bottom of the deck, but that's fine, because you have other key grade 2s that you want to call. Like, if possible, not call over. You want to, like, call. Like I said, there's, like, a lot of grade 2s in this deck that you want to call and utilize, and you just don't want to call over them. So, Onimaru is tucking to the bottom of the deck is not necessarily a bad thing, because you don't always have the chance to intercept. Or you don't always have the luxury of that. Your opponent, because they don't know what your cards do, that they're afraid of them, they're just going to try and attack into your ears. Or they're going to pop your ears. But anyways, guys, that's the profile. Oh, I didn't even say. I topped with this deck, by the way. I got 2nd place. There was only 3 rounds, but I went X1. My only loss was to Zorga, and the funny thing was I beat you're gonna see the video. I beat the guy playing Magnolia, and he got 1st place and I got 2nd. And I'm like, how is that possible? But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. There are gonna be more videos in the future. See you guys. Love you.